Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 191 based on novel. So let's start. However, even if she was in a much better state of mind, her body was still affected by the poison. She called herself a funnel before, because she kept losing the life energy that she absorbed from the Life Guardian blade. However, it was also because of this that she was able to maintain her current condition. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to get out of bed right now. Bei exerted a little more force with his arm and brought Tang San closer to him. He was afraid that she would leave him if he wasn't careful enough. He couldn't imagine what he would do if that happened. He couldn't imagine how pained he would be. Bei. Tang San gently called his name. Yes. Bei softly acknowledged. Tang San softly said, "Do you think I'm very spoiled? If not for the fact that I left, so many things wouldn't have happened. No, it's my fault. I couldn't protect you." Bei looked at Tang San, and his face was filled with guilt. "If I had understood your thoughts better and showed you more concern, so many things wouldn't have happened, and you wouldn't have suffered so much. Xiao, don't worry, I'll treat you no matter what." Tang San smiled and said, "All right, don't be like this. Am I not alive and well? If you want to make me happy, you need to be happy yourself. Even if I can't live much longer, do you really wish to see me in pain even as I draw my last breath? Be happy with me, okay?" Bei smiled. "All right." Tang San brought her face to his and whispered, Bei, I want to bear you a son, and we'll name him as a Tang. All right? Otherwise, the Tang sect won't have any more descendants. Bei was shocked and immediately responded. "No? Why not? Don't you love me?" Tang San immediately pursed her lips. Although she had recovered her memories, her character had also reverted to her teenage days too. Bei laughed bitterly. "It's not that we can't name him as a Tang, but that you can't bear a child. Given your current condition." Tang San shook her head and said, "No, I'm fine. I can do it. My life energy is lacking, but our life energies combined can still produce a new life. He can live on my behalf. How great would that be? If I die and can't remain by your side, he can be with you. You won't feel lonely either, right?" Bei's body shook, and tears surged from his eyes. He hugged her tightly as he lost control of his emotions. No, Xiao, I won't let you die. You must not die. If you dare to die, I'll accompany you." Tang San caressed Bei's hair. The look in her eyes was very gentle. "Silly, where can you find someone who doesn't die? It's only a matter of timing. I don't feel indignant at all. You've already completed my greatest wish, and you love me so much too. Even though I've not lived for a long time, I've done what I wanted to. I have no regrets. I only want to bear you a child, all right?" Bei couldn't even answer her. Right now, he was sobbing uncontrollably. Bei. At this moment, a voice sounded from outside. Tang San immediately broke free from Bei's embrace. Bei also hurriedly wiped away his tears. He was the decision-maker in the Tang sect. He couldn't possibly let anyone see him like this. Shu Sancha rushed in. Only he was capable of rushing into Bei's room and making such a huge commotion. Once he entered, he felt something wrong with the atmosphere. He saw the displeased look in Tang San's eyes before he saw Bei's slightly red eyes. He coughed. "Have I come at a bad time? Should I come back later?" Shu Sancha was about to turn around and leave. "Cut the crap. Say whatever you have to say." Bei snapped. He understood Shu Sanchi's character very well. From his voice, he could tell that something had happened, and it had to be something good. It seems like Little Junior is about to exit his closed-door cultivation. There's a very strong medicinal smell coming from the laboratory. It's everywhere now. Do you want to take a look? Xian Ziwen's laboratory was in the basement, and it was well sealed. If the medicinal smell could diffuse from the laboratory, it showed how strong the smell was. After hearing Xu Sanqi's words, Bei Bei was also jolted awake. Although he knew that no medicine Hui Yuhao came up with could treat Tang Yue, he still bore a glimmer of hope in his heart. Let's go and take a look. Indeed, it was like as Xu Sanqi described. In fact, when Bei Bei left his room, he could immediately smell the medicine. It was very light, but refreshing. By just sniffing it a little, Bei Bei felt as if his soul power had been stimulated. Bei Bei thought of something, and said to Xu Sanqi, "Sanqi, quickly call all the Tang sect disciples and gather at the practice arena. Everyone can meditate together." Xu Sanqi had been his partner for many years. He immediately understood what Bei Bei meant. Yes. Why didn't I think of this? I'll go right now. You and Xiao Yue can proceed to the laboratory first. The two of them split the work well. Bei Bei held onto Tang Yue's hands and quickly rushed towards the basement of the Soul Tool Hall. The closer they came to the Soul Tool Hall, the stronger the medicinal smell was. Even by sniffing it, they felt extremely comfortable. Even Tang Yue developed a reddish glow on her face. This medicine is very strong. What kind of medicine has little Junior cultivated? It's actually so strong. When they came to the entrance of the basement of the Soul Tool Hall, the rest of the senior management of the Tang sect had already gathered there. Let's go, let's all go down. Bei Bei waved to everyone before saying to Nana, "Nana, I've asked Sanqi to gather the disciples. Whether they are from the Soul Tool Hall or any other halls, immediately bring them to the basement and gather outside the laboratory after they arrive." The underground laboratory area of the Tang sect was very large. It could hold a few thousand people at once. There were more than 500 Tang sect disciples in the Tang sect right now, but it was still easy to hold them. Okay. Nana acknowledged. The rest quickly entered the basement. The medicinal smell in the basement was even stronger. Xian Ziwen was astonished. Yu Hao is really impressive. What kind of medicine has he cultivated? Just by smelling it, I think it's more effective than the medicine I consumed last time. We can't waste it. Quick! He was the one who had researched the pill furnace. Naturally, he was very familiar with it. It was a Class 9 soul tool. There was a vent hole that prevented the accumulation of pressure inside the furnace. At times, the pressure would be released. Undoubtedly, this was how the medicinal smell had spread out. If the medicinal smell that diffused in this way was already so good, how strong was the medicine? Inside the laboratory. Right now, Hui Yuhao wasn't the only one cultivating the medicine. Behind him stood Tang Wutong. Although Hui Yuhao could barely make a Class 9 soul tool, he only had 8 soul rings. He couldn't operate a Class 9 soul tool. However, he could do so with Tang Wutong's help. Over the past few months, he had cultivated with her using his Haodong power. Their new Haodong power had fused godly elements which greatly helped in their cultivation. Furthermore, the fusion of their soul power was getting stronger and stronger. With Tang Wutong's support, Hui Yuhao could easily pour out the soul power of a titled Dolor right now. It was definitely fine for him to continue cultivating. Right now, the entire pill furnace was golden red. The 4 vent holes at the top of the furnace would occasionally sizzle and release gas. The entire laboratory was now filled with the fragrance of medicine. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong could both sense the medicinal smell seeping through their bodies. That feeling was very magical. It felt as if their entire bodies had been cleansed. They were about to succeed. Hui Yuhao had been cultivating this batch of pills for a long time. More accurately speaking, this batch of pills contained all the valuable treasures that he had brought back. Over the past 3 months, he had cultivated these pills 20 times. According to the different compositions of the medicines, he dispensed them and cultivated them, extracting their essence and removing their impurities. After he finished, he cultivated all of them together to produce this final batch of pills. Such pills were some of the strongest, according to the records left behind by Tang San. They could even be considered immortal pills, and were collectively known as Qiankuan fortune pills. If not for the fact that Hui Yuhao had cleaned out the entire ice fire yin-yang well and extracted the essences of the immortal plants around the well, he wouldn't have dared to try cultivating these pills. A Class 9 pill furnace was too strong. In his previous attempts, the essences Hui Yuhao cultivated were close to becoming pills. However, the cultivation process was too simple, which caused him to be a little more ambitious. Since he had a Class 9 pill furnace and a complete list of resources, why shouldn't he try making Qiankuan fortune pills? This was what he had achieved as a result. It was just that he didn't expect that cultivating these pills would be so difficult. When he first started, he only relied on his own strength and that of the pill furnace. However, as time passed, the essences of the resources were quickly extracted. When they mixed together, the amount of power that was released became greater and greater. Even the Class 9 pill furnace was unable to contain so much power. Hui Yuhao had no choice but to use his soul power to maintain the production process. From the first day he started on this batch of pills, it had already been 49 days. He managed on his own for the first 20 days. After that, he needed Tang Wutong to help him. Furthermore, Hui Yuhao was stunned to find out that this pill furnace was easier to control using the Haodong power compared to when he used his own strength. In addition, the effect seemed to be better too. The strong medicinal composition in the furnace seemed to submit to the Haodong power. This wasn't just because the Haodong power was much stronger than Hui Yuhao's individual soul power. It seemed like the Haodong power contained some kind of strength that the essences of the medicine had no choice but to submit to. Right now, the medicinal fluid inside the furnace had fully taken form. Hui Yuhao was down to the last step of the cultivation, which was forming the pills. What this meant was that the essences inside the furnace had to be compressed further to turn them into pills. This process was the simplest compared to the other steps, but it was the most draining too. When Hui Yuhao started on this step, the Class 9 furnace seemed to be unable to take it, and needed to release some pressure first. Fortunately, the medicinal essences were stabilized with Tang Wutong's help. As their soul power flowed in their bodies, Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong both shone with golden light. The bright and transparent golden light caused the glow emanating from their bodies to become stronger and stronger. On Hui Yuhao's forehead, his eye of destiny was already opened. In the center of his pupil, a whirlpool formed by his soul core was spinning rapidly. However, on a closer look, it was clear that this rapidly spinning whirlpool was no longer as black and deep as before. Rather, it was formed from black and white. The mysterious black and white continuously formed the images of yin and yang, and a weird spiritual undulation was revolving around Hui Yuhao's body. As for Tang Wutong, the golden trident on her forehead was very clear. It exuded an elegant yet domineering aura. Their Haodong power formed a massive golden whirlpool with their bodies at the center. This whirlpool was spinning rapidly. The diameter of this golden whirlpool was around 3 meters, but it didn't expand further. Within it, there was immense soul power. At the core of this whirlpool, a crystal entity that resembled that of a soul core seemed to have taken form. A soul core from a martial soul fusion? Regarding this, even Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong were unsure. Their soul core presented itself in a jujube-like shape. Not long after their Haodong power consolidated, it appeared. As they cultivated further and further, this soul core also became more and more evident. Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong could only sense that there was an extremely terrifying compressed soul power contained within their soul core. They had been cultivating over the past few months, but hadn't had a chance to fight yet. After all, Hui Yuhao was very busy with his learning and research. However, he deeply believed that their martial soul fusion had to be 120% now, if it had been 100% before. Kai, the vent holes were sizzling again. Following this, the entire furnace turned a blinding gold. Strong golden lights flashed, and a fragrance swept over the entire place. After this, the lights retracted once again before shooting into the sky. The temperature in the entire laboratory rose quickly. A large number of rare metals started to soften under this high temperature. Hui Yuhao stretched out his hands in front of him, and an icy blue glow was instantly released from his body, turning into a massive barrier that engulfed the golden lights. This helped to isolate the extremely high temperature. Dim light shone, and Hui Yuhao revealed an icy cold and mysterious look on his face. He pointed at the furnace with his right hand. While it seemed like a simple action, it actually helped to stabilize the furnace, which was shaking tremendously. This wasn't the effect of his ultimate ice, but a result of his spiritual power. His spirit ice soul core released unprecedentedly strong spiritual undulations, an immense spiritual pressure descended, compressing the medicinal energy that was stirring in the furnace. At this instant, Hui Yuhao only felt that his emotions were like a hill and he was like a mountain, as he suppressed the undulations of the medicinal energy. Emotions, was this the power of emotions? Before he saw the god of emotions, Hui Yuhao's use of his emotional strength wasn't deliberate. It only happened because his yearning for Wang Donga was too intense. Right now, his action was deliberate. He had actually succeeded. Right now, his emotions were terrifying. When he fused such power into his spiritual power, Hui Yuhao only felt that his spirit, spiritual power, and emotions had fused into one entity. Immense soul power undulations were released under such conditions, fusing with the strange spiritual undulations. Tang Wutong, who was seated by Hui Yuhao, had already opened her eyes. She was completely astonished. Whatever Hui Yuhao felt, she felt the same too. What kind of strength is this? It's so powerful. At that instant, she only felt that Hui Yuhao had become a mighty mountain in front of her. He was immovable, and completely domineering. Even she felt that he was irresistible, even though she had fused with him to generate their Haodong power. The golden light from the furnace slowly turned golden red before gradually dimming. The medicinal energy that was seeping out finally retracted into the furnace. Hui Yuhao let out a long breath, and his emotions also became less intense. The pills were done. Even as the mighty feeling disappeared, Hui Yuhao was still Hui Yuhao. Tang Wutong pulled her palms back and took a deep breath. She slowly stood up. Was it successful? She asked softly. Yes. Hui Yuhao turned around and smiled. Hui Yuhao then stood up and came in front of the pill furnace with Tang Wutong. Tang Wutong said, "It seems like your strength seemed to change earlier." What kind of strength was that? It can actually suppress medicinal energy. At that moment, I could even sense that you didn't use much of the Haodong power either. Hui Yuhao asked, "Do you still remember my 3 ultimate Haodong skills?" Tang Wutong revealed a warm look in her eyes when she heard the words, 3 ultimate Haodong skills, and nodded. How could she not remember? Before she regained her memories, she had personally witnessed him using them. Back then, Hui Yuhao had used his 3 ultimate Haodong skills to astonish the death god Doluo. She only truly understood that strong sense of yearning after she recovered. Hui Yuhao smiled and gently hugged her waist, saying, "The reason why my 3 ultimate Haodong skills are so strong is because I fused everything in my life into them. During the fusion process, the catalyst was my emotions, my yearning for you. This helped me to discover the profundity of emotions. The same soul master with the same abilities can unleash different fighting strengths under different emotions. If he can properly control his emotions and fuse them with his abilities, he can greatly increase their power. Earlier, I tried to fuse my emotions and the spiritual power of my spirit eyes together before using everything I had to ensure a complete fusion. In that way, I was able to unleash 200% of my abilities through my emotional undulations." Tang Wutong appeared pensive. Such a self-created soul skill isn't simple. I shall try it too. Hui Yuhao lowered his head and said, "In fact, I don't think it's as effective as the original 3 ultimate Haodong skills, even though I've managed to comprehend some of the mysteries within them. You should know that I relied on my 3 ultimate Haodong skills to kill an evil soul Doluo when I was still a soul emperor. Come, I'll let you sense my emotions." As he spoke, a strong sense of love mixed with his spiritual power spread towards Tang Wutong. Tang Wutong was stunned. Following this, her ears turned red. She seemed to be tearing up a little as she looked at Hui Yuhao. She couldn't resist his love at all. "All right, everyone's waiting outside. Quickly, open the furnace," Tang Wutong said softly as she leaned against Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao immediately stepped back. The mysterious, sealed power on Tang Wutong's body was too terrifying. He had tried to resist it before, but the final result was that he got bruised. Furthermore, the more he resisted, the more tragic he became. Hui Yuhao had used the furnace until he was very familiar with it. He touched the furnace a few times before it released a layer of soul power undulations. Following this, the temperature of the furnace rose again. It was releasing the heat and pressure inside it. Hui Yuhao waved his right hand, and a layer of ultimate ice formed a meter away from the furnace, dissipating the heat. This lasted for 10 minutes before the heat inside the furnace was fully dissipated. Hui Yuhao mimicked a lifting action, and the cover of the furnace slowly rose with a creak. The medicinal fragrance that had disappeared earlier immediately swept the air. The fragrance was only released for an instant, but Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong felt as if their pores had been opened. They were greedily absorbing the essence of heaven and earth into their bodies. Something even stranger appeared. A layer of light surged out of the furnace and formed a smooth glow. Within this glow shone lights that resembled the intersection of sun rays and moonlight. The Qiankuan fortune pills were completed. Hui Yuhao lifted his head to look inside the furnace. He also didn't know how many pills he could cultivate. He had used almost all the materials he had, as he had wanted to maximize the effect of the medicine. When he looked at the Qiankuan fortune pills, he couldn't help but reveal an astonished look on his face. The pills were milky white and smooth. Every pill was covered in fog and was the size of a fingernail. There weren't many of them. It seemed like there were only 7 pills. Yes, there were exactly 7 pills. They were forged from more than 40 different natural treasures. But there were only 7 pills? Hui Yuhao couldn't help but frown at the number. The Tang sect's inner circle had more than 7 people. Besides Shrek's 7 monsters, there was Xianziwen, Jiao Delu, Na, Yi Gai, Ji Juichen, Jing Ziyan, and Nan Qiu. There were only 7 pills, so who would get one, and who wouldn't? Furthermore, this yin-yang fortune pill was claimed to contain the good fortune of heaven and earth, and it could completely change a person's body and soul. The reason why Hui Yuhao had insisted on making these was because he had hoped for the yin-yang fortune pill to improve Tang Yue's body. Even though it wouldn't release her life energy like the Blue-Silver Emperor would, but if it could rely on its fortune of heaven and earth to completely change her body, then it could guarantee that her life wouldn't be in danger, at least. But there were only 7 pills, so dividing them was a tough problem. Tang Wutong could see what Hui Yuhao saw. She squeezed his hand and whispered, "Don't worry, Yuhao. At least the forging was successful. Let's get everyone together to discuss how to divide this. I won't take one. After all, I already have 8 soul rings, and our cultivation speed isn't that slow, as we can cultivate together with Haodong power." Tang Wutong's words were like water from a clear spring that rinsed Hui Yuhao's anxious and restless heart. He pulled her tightly into his embrace and said, "What else is there to want but a lover like you?" Strangely, Tang Wutong's seal didn't act up this time. Hui Yuhao took out a jade bottle and put all 7 pills inside, and only then did he open the gate to the laboratory and walk out with Tang Wutong. Hui Yuhao was startled just as he stepped out. A large mass of the Tang sect's disciples were seated outside. It looked like almost every single one of them was here. A thick and aromatic smell of medicinal fragrance wafted out once the lab's door was open, and permeated the entire Soul Tool Hall's underground foundations. Bei Bei and the others hurriedly came forward. "Is the pill forging successful, little junior brother?" Bei Bei asked. Hui Yuhao replied, "Don't worry, eldest senior brother, it's successful." But a bitter smile appeared on his face as he spoke. Bei Bei felt his heart skip a beat. What's wrong? Hui Yuhao had already wasted 4 months so that he could forge this batch of pills. At least, it was a waste from Bei Bei's perspective, because Hui Yuhao could achieve excellent results if he had used the past 4 months to cultivate. However, Hui Yuhao didn't hesitate to spend his precious time on the Tang sect. Everyone was full of gratitude, even though they didn't say much. Hui Yuhao whispered, "There's too few. Let's speak outside, eldest senior brother." Bei Bei immediately understood as he nodded and said without changing his expression, "All of the Tang sect's disciples remain here to cultivate and absorb the medicinal effects. Everyone above the status of Vice Hall Master, follow me out for a meeting. Everyone stepped out one after another as they arrived inside the Tang sect's conference hall. Hui Yuhao's face was a little pale because he was too tired. The others didn't know that the number of pills that he had forged was very few, but everyone could tell from his and Beibei's expressions that something was wrong, that a problem had occurred with the pill forging. Beibei and Tang Wei sat in the seats of honor, while Hui Yuhao and Xian Ziwen sat beside them. Beibei nodded in Hui Yuhao's direction. Hui Yuhao had to take responsibility at a time like this, and he stood up and said, "Teacher Xian, my senior brothers and sisters, the pill forging was successful. I have used the natural treasures that I brought back from the Yin-Yang Ice Fire Well, and I forged them into a batch of pills. This pill is called the Yin-Yang Fortune Pill, and it's the best kind of pill that the Tang sect's ancestor, Tang San, recorded in his archives. It is claimed to contain the good fortune of heaven and earth." He took out the jade bottle as he spoke and placed it on the tabletop. Everyone's eyes fell on the jade bottle. "This is my first attempt, but all of the medicines and herbs were only enough to make this one batch. Therefore, I don't know how strong the Yin-Yang Fortune Pill's effects are going to be. But there's a problem with the number of pills forged, because there's only 7 complete ones." 7? Everyone was momentarily stunned when they heard that number, and the conference hall immediately fell silent. Every single one of them knew from the benefit they had gained from the thick medicinal aroma from before that Hui Yuhao's pill was out of the ordinary, but nobody expected that there would only be 7. There were already more than 10 individuals seated here. How could they divide the pills if there were only 7? Right in this moment, Xian Ziwen suddenly stood up and said, "You guys can decide among yourselves how you wish to split the pills. I'm already old, so I don't need to eat this thing. Besides, I'm already a Class 9 soul engineer, and I don't have a long future of growth ahead of me. I'll go back to the Soul Tool Hall to check on how those little fellows are doing with their cultivation." Xian Ziwen's expression was very sincere and decisive. There were only 7 pills from the batch, and he was the first who chose to give up his claim. He was very clear about these pills' value, and he had also helped Hui Yuhao complete the pill furnace. However, he knew that these extremely valuable pills would be much more effective for youngsters, and that was the reason why he chose to relinquish his claim without any hesitation at all. Such noble character and unquestionable integrity. "No, Teacher Xian. Please wait for a moment, and let me finish." Hui Yuhao stopped Xian Ziwen and didn't let him leave. Xian Ziwen was momentarily stunned as he glanced at Hui Yuhao, and a questioning look appeared in his eyes. Hui Yuhao shook his head lightly at him and said, "Please let me finish." Xian Ziwen had given so much blood and sweat, and he had contributed so much so that the Tang sect could be where they were today. He probably contributed more than anybody else here. When Hui Yuhao first began to forge the Yin-Yang Fortune Pill, he had already decided that Teacher Xian had to get one, even if it would only serve to prolong his life and promote his longevity. Sometimes, affection and sentiment couldn't be measured with profit or benefit. Everyone's eyes turned to Hui Yuhao. Everybody was selfish, especially in front of natural treasures such as this. But selfishness had to be distinguished with circumstance. The Tang sect was built upon everyone's teamwork and unity ever since their establishment to the scale that they were at today. Every single one of them depended on and was attached to this group, and they were full of affection for each other as well. Nobody wanted these external objects to affect their love for each other, which didn't come easy. At a time like this, Hui Yuhao, who was the one who had brought back all these natural treasures, and who was also the one who had put in so much effort so that these pills could be forged, was undoubtedly the person who was most worthy of deciding how they would be divided. Hui Yuhao just stood there as he briefly calmed his emotions before he lowered his voice and said, "This bottle contains 7 pills in total. I'm the one who made them, and the number is limited. Let me decide how to split them." Everyone had the same reaction to Hui Yuhao taking the initiative to speak those words, but they were even more relieved. According to the typical manner that the Tang sect did things, there was usually a democratic discussion when something big came up. But there were so many of them, but only 7 pills, so how were they to be divided? Hui Yuhao took the initiative to shoulder this responsibility, so everyone felt more relieved. At least, whether or not they would receive a pill in the end, they didn't have to shoulder that responsibility. Wait. Hui Yuhao was just about to continue when Bei Bei suddenly stood up and interrupted him. Hui Yuhao turned around to look at Bei Bei, and Bei Bei stared at him deeply and said, "Before Yuhao divides these pills, let me say a few words. No matter how these 7 pills are going to be divided, nobody can object. The truth is, Yuhao has forged these 7 pills all by himself, and we cannot use our emotions or our affections to split them. Instead, we should divide these pills based on our contributions. Teacher Xian needs to have 1. Without the pill furnace that came up with, this batch wouldn't even be here today. Yuhao, I hope that you will be as fair as you can when you divide these pills. Every single person here is a part of the Tang sect, and the Tang sect wouldn't be here without everyone. Whatever your decision is will be the Tang sect's common consensus." Bei Bei was too familiar with Hui Yuhao. He said those words because he knew that Hui Yuhao was shouldering all the responsibility by taking the initiative to divide these pills. There were 7 pills, so some would receive 1, while others wouldn't. Would those that didn't receive 1 feel resentful? That resentment would be projected onto the person who had decided the split. That was the reason why Bei Bei emphasized that, because he didn't want Hui Yuhao to bear this responsibility alone. Bei Bei's heart was actually in a lot of pain. He was the Tang sect's main director, and he was the only one who was worthy enough to request the responsibility of dividing the pills from Hui Yuhao among everyone here. But he couldn't do that, because if he had that responsibility, he couldn't give 1 to himself or to Xiao Wei to show that he was being fair. But even if he didn't want 1, what about Tang Wei? He was truly hoping that this pill could prolong her life. Therefore, he gritted his teeth, and didn't make that request in the end. Hui Yuhao nodded in Bei Bei's direction before he turned back to everyone. The faint smile on his face was still there. "Eldest senior brother, you don't have to be so nervous. The truth is, even though there are so few pills, it's not that difficult to split them. Everyone might have misunderstood that 7 pills can only be divided among 7 people. You guys are thinking that there's more than 10 of us here, so about half of us won't get any. Actually, it's not like that. I don't know how strong the yin-yang fortune pills' effects are, but the level of natural treasures contained absolutely cannot be replicated, and it's not too much to call them god-level herbs. Since that's the case, why do we have to take 1 pill each? One person taking 1 pill each might even be counterproductive. We can always split 1 pill among several people. It's also less dangerous that way, and we can be fairer to everyone. Isn't that great? Therefore, you don't have to be nervous, everyone." Everyone was first taken aback when they heard Hui Yuhao's words, but their expressions immediately relaxed in the next moment. Wasn't that right? Who decided that 1 pill could only go to 1 person? Bei Bei was also momentarily stunned before he laughed out loud. "Yes. I wasn't thinking straight because I was too concerned." Hui Yuhao saw that everyone had become more relaxed before he nodded and said with a straight face, "The yin-yang fortune pills have been forged, and what we have to do next is try them out. There are records in the archives that the yin-yang fortune pills contain the good fortune of heaven and earth, and we really don't know what they can do with such a vague and broad description. Therefore, I have decided to test it first, to see how strong the medicinal effects are, then I'll decide how to divide it. Everyone who's seated here cannot escape, and everyone will test the pills with me. I will take 1 from the 7 and dissolve it in water before dividing it equally for everyone. We will feel the medicinal effects together and see exactly to what extent they affect us. Of course, that doesn't include teacher Xiao Wei. Her body is weak, so she will use it only after we finish testing its effects. We will decide how to divide the remaining 6 pills after we have finished testing them." Everyone nodded at the same time when they heard his words. Xian Ziwen laughed and said, "Since everyone has a piece of the cake, then I won't be so polite anymore. Count me in." Bei Bei said, "Yuhao, keep the pills first. Let's do it this way, everyone can go back and have a good rest and gather some strength so that we can take the pills together tomorrow and see how they affect us. Sancha and I will check on the rest of the Tang sect disciples and see how the medicinal aroma is affecting them." The conference was initially a little tense, but after Hui Yuhao's clever suggestion, the mood became a lot more relaxed. Everyone was to try the yin-yang fortune pills effects, and even if someone didn't get a pill in the end, at least they had tried it. Everyone left to deal with their own matters. Bei Bei hugged Hui Yuhao across the shoulders and laughed as he said, "Nicely done, little junior brother. Did you know that I was really shocked when you said that there were only 7 pills? We'll be in trouble if this causes some infighting within the sect." Hui Yuhao chuckled. "Eldest senior brother, I don't think you have to worry about that. With the relationships that we have with each other, even if some of us don't get the pill in the end, everyone won't complain that much." Bei Bei shook his head gently and said, "I don't wish for anyone to have any negative feelings in their hearts. No matter what, your decision to divide it this way is great. Do you have something in mind?" Hui Yuhao nodded and said, "I feel like the yin-yang fortune pills effects might be stronger than I imagined. But I can only be sure what the exact extent is after experimenting. I hope that I can give the Sea Gods Pavilion 1 pill when I'm dividing them later. The Tang sect wouldn't be where it is today without the Academy's support." Bei Bei nodded in approval. "That should be done. I was going to remind you if you didn't mention it." Hui Yuhao said, "Of the remaining pills, 1 will be given to teacher Xiao Yue to treat her illness. There will be 4 remaining pills, and if the effects are good enough, I think 2 should be dissolved into water for everyone to use, and we will leave 2 more in the Tang sect just in case." Bei Bei tilted his head slightly and said, "Yes, that's good. I'll rest assured if that's your plan. All right, you've been working so hard for so long, hurry up and get some rest." The night passed peacefully. Morning on the second day. The various members of the Tang sect in a circle gathered in their conference hall. Bei Bei had been here very early, and he said excitedly when everyone was gathered, "Yesterday, almost every single one of the Tang sect's disciples went into deep meditation after absorbing the yin-yang fortune pill's medicinal aroma. Less than 10% of them are awake at this moment." With that, the smile on his face became even more radiant. This video will end here.